So yeah, this is the Entrepreneur Series, which is actually I interviewed the guy who I guess inspired me to do the Entrepreneur Series and the coaching series, and he's doing a lot of great things. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Like, how is this going to align with like crazy juicy love? And I was like, well, careers do affect people's love lives, and just wanting to bring people on that are, I guess, passionate in what they're doing, and to show like how they got to where they are, and like what they had to do to get out of their way to like be where they are, so they can be inspired by other people and also maybe take the same steps, so they can have a juicy life that they love, and a career that they're passionate about. Because as you've been through the journey of Landmark, you see a lot of people are on that journey, just want to be in something that they love and they're passionate about. So this is why I'm creating this series.
This is like, hold on, let me silence my phone. This is something that I'm super passionate about, because I think I was telling you this the other day. Like, I really believe that it's possible for everybody to live a life that they love and that they're passionate about. Mm-hmm. Like, it really is possible. The reason why it doesn't look like it's possible is because like our entire society is just not designed like that.
Right.
Like it's almost like if you had it's like it's just not the way it's built. From the moment you're born, to now when you're alive, like it's just not all the structures in society are just not set up to support somebody like being creative, somebody inventing their own career, somebody like taking what they love and making it into their job.
Right.
Like that's just not the way that anything is set up. So like, why would it seem possible?
Right. It gets complicated when, it depends on your religion, where you come from, and people impose their view and ideas on other people. Then we live and carry that idea. Well, my parents said, I can't do this. They won't support me if I, like, especially in the creative field, if you have parents who don't believe in being an artist, I'm not going to pay for your college. You need to go to school and be a lawyer. You're going to be, a dentist or whatever. And then that person goes and do that, and they are successful, but they're unhappy with mm-hmm. that thing, and they end up quitting their jobs, or they just stay in there just being unhappy because this is what I was taught I need to do in order to be a part of society, to be accepted, to look good for my family and not shame my family because I'm an artist. A lot of people deal with that consistently.
It's so weird. Like it like you just said that. It's so true though. Like so many people are like ashamed, like being an artist. So I'm an artist, mm-hmm. And so being an artist, it's like shameful until you're successful, and then it's like
oh, you made it now,
and then it's like exalted. Right. Like, oh, like he's oh, look at him, like he's like somebody that, like, if you think about, like, if your 13-year-old cousin is like, yo, I'm gonna be a rapper, you're like right. And then but if Jay-Z is like, hey, I'm Jay-Z, you're like, oh my god,
right.
So it's like
it's interesting because there's Oprah has this podcast called The Master Class. It's a podcast and I think video as well. But anyway, I was listening to it the other day with Cicely Tyson, and you know who Cicely Tyson is, right?
I don't know who Cicely Tyson is.
So, wow. So Cicely Tyson is the first African-American woman to win an Oscar ever. She was the first person to ever win an Oscar. And she's just really, she won an Oscar for, oh my God, by Alex Haley. And, oh my God, I can't think about the thing right now.
Did this just happen?
No, I mean, she's like in her 70s. No.
When did she win this Oscar?
the us. I mean, this is terrible. I should know this. This is something in like black schools that, like, not black schools, but Black History Month, that you should know. Anyway, she, hold on, it's right here. She won. Sorry, I remember now. It's for the movie Roots, and she played Kote Kente's mother, and she won the Oscar for that. It says Academy Award Globe Best Actress in 1974. And she's still around, still working, still doing what she needs to do. She's like, I'm going to do this until I die. But she was sharing about when she grew up, when, she was a pretty, really dark-skinned woman. And she said when she decided, first she started as a model. And when she became a model, when her mother found out, her mother said, if you're going to be a model, you can't live here. And I was like, oh. So she was like, that week I had to pack my bags and leave, because she somehow knew that this is what she was meant to do. And as she got more successful modeling, then she started to do acting. And then when she knew that this is like, this is the journey that I'm on to be an actress, and if I become successful as an actress, I'm not just going to be some celebrity. I'm going to use my name to be an activism for affirmative action, Black injustice and stuff like that, and back in the 70s and 60s. So when she, on her journey to be an actress, she was in a Broadway show, if I'm not mistaken. She got a standing ovation from the show, and her mother came to see it. And it wasn't until that moment when her mother saw, basically she could hear her mother talking shit about her in the audience. But at the end of the show, when everybody stood up, when she walked on stage for the applause, then her mother goes, "That's my daughter. I knew she was going to be an actress. I knew it. That's me." Like signing autographs, because she proved her, her worth, I guess.
It's so strange, I have so I'm lucky, okay, because my parents, they, when they realized that I was not going to, so my dad really wanted me to play baseball, because he really wanted to play baseball. He was amazing. He actually tried out for the Yankees at one point in his life. And he really wanted me to play baseball, but he always tells this story about how he used to take me to like Little League, and I would go like begrudgingly. It was like dragging me out the door to like go to these games, and like he could just see it was like I did not want to be there. And he finally just had to say, like, then I would come home and I would just draw pictures and draw pictures and draw pictures and draw pictures and draw pictures. And then finally he just said, like, look, this kid doesn't want to play baseball.
Right.
He just wants to draw pictures. So we should just we should encourage him to do what he wants to do. Like, he's creative. He wants to do art. And then my parents sat me down and said, look, if you want to do art, we'll support you. Do art, but you got to do art. You got to actually go out and do it. So they started to like, they like leaned in at my school and my high school and put me into like all the art classes. And then they like made up more art classes. They were like, look, this kid can't do math. Like, look at him. Like, he's not doing anything. They basically went into school and they were like, look, this kid can't do math. He's not doing, they didn't say that like that. But my parents didn't say it like that. But they were like, look, this kid is going to art school. Like, and I was just in a public school, so they didn't really have like, very like super like programs for me. They just had normal school stuff, right? So they just put me in like all the art classes. And I remember, I don't know the specifics of this, but there was like, I just kept like retaking this one class like every year, because there was not enough art classes, but they just worked out with the school. They were like, this is what this kid is going to do. So, and then they supported me. And then when I decided to go to art school, they drove me to all the schools to like visit them, and they took me, they supported me 100% of the way. So I don't know. I didn't have the experience of like parents that didn't want me to go into the arts. I had the experience of parents that supported me with my choice to go into the arts. My parents have always been supportive of, I don't know if they've been supportive of everything I've done, but they've always supported me, right? Like, even if they didn't think it was the best thing for me. I don't know that they ever always understood it. And they still don't totally understand me, and that's fine. But they really, I think at this point, they realize, like, I don't know what the hell this kid is doing, but he's going to be okay.
Right.
Which I think is good. But I don't know what it's like to like have to like to not be supported in following my dreams by my parents. My parents did support me, and but I know that the world is not designed to support you in following your dreams.
Right.
Like, it's just not. Mostly the world is designed to break down your dreams and force you to like work at Kmart.
Right. I could tell you some stories, but I want to just, before we get more and more into this, I want to introduce you.
Yeah.
Podcast. Just a quick things before I do. It's important for you to just be, both of us on both parts, to be authentic and vulnerable as possible, to share, whatever it is you think that would make the difference for anyone that is listening to this. It's in the jewels, and as you know, in the sharing, that people take action, hopefully will take action in their life and bring forth some type of transformation in their life. And that's all really what I'm creating this podcast to do, to help people change, create the love life that they want and the career that they want, and that's it, and to see through other people that it is possible. That's it.
Cool. Well,
Okay.
yeah, game on. You got
All
me.
Alrighty, so welcome to the Crazy Juicy Love podcast with the entrepreneurial series. I have a special man right in front of me. His name is Liam Alexander. He is a creative director, and I'm reading like you are the chairman of of the American Society of Media Photography, which I didn't even know you're a photographer until you like showed me your bio. And then you're also a creative, that you take pictures and I think you manipulate them and create artwork.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna let you introduce yourself and what you do and who you are for the world as a creative director.
Oh, well, first of all, just thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And so I'm an artist. I make photographic-based collage art that I show and I sell in galleries. You can see I'm actually working on some stuff back there. This is my studio. This is where I work, where we run the production of Stroke of Genius, which is a documentary series that we're producing about. It's about that moment when you choose how to live the rest of your life, and it's told through people that have triumphed over traumatic medical events. Mm-hmm. And I also work out of here making my fine art, which is over here. Some works in progress over here. These are
many hats, this man.
Yeah, you can see, and those are my hats. Those are the hats that I wear. That's like, okay, this one is that's art. That's creative direction.
Like, literally.
That's movie directing. This hat.
What's the baseball cap for?
That's a secret.
Oh. I will talk to you off camera more about that hat.
Yeah, so that's what I do, and I also work with organizations and individuals, and also sometimes social movements on their creative brand design. So I work with people on their messaging and about and communicating their message through their branded materials and their visuals to the right people, so that they can speak the right language that they hear that can actually move them to action around whatever it is that they want, right? Because that's, yes.
No, go ahead, finish.
Oh yeah, that's really like at the core of everything that we're up to is like, action, like taking action, having people take action, having people in our lives take action, and having our, customers or other people that we want to do whatever that we want them to do. Be in action around it, and being in action around what's going to make a difference for the world. Right. So that's what I enjoy doing with people.
So first of all, how did you even get into being a creative director? Were you like that? Because that's something that is you realize you like grow into. It's not like something, oh, I'm a creative director. So what was your journey to you becoming a creative director?
Well, it's an interesting journey because I started off as a painter, going to school as a painter. Then I became a photographer. And as a photographer, I was doing photo and video for companies. And I started to want to understand more about what was going on, because I found that there was oftentimes a disconnect between the product that people wanted and what they were getting. So people would say to me, oh, hey, like we need to make you a video. And then and a lot of times people will say, oh, we want a video that does X, Y, Z. And then we go out and we shoot the video, whatever. But what I was noticing is like, people would come to me and they would say, we want a video. And I would say, okay, great. Well, what are you doing with that video? And they would say, I don't know. Someone just told us to make a video. And I would say, okay, well, are you putting it on your website? Is it a television commercial? And they would say, yeah, probably, be on the website, it'll be in the commercial. And then I would be in a conversation with people for like 10, 15 minutes. And then I would say, look, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, you don't need a video. Right. Like you need someone to like redo your website, because this is your product. This is what you're trying to do. Like, these are the people you're trying to reach. You have no sales funnel. You have no sales pipeline. Like, so you could make as many videos as you want, but the reality is no one's ever going to buy your product, because this, and this are not working, and you're missing this, and like none of your communications make any sense, right? So, and I started so then people were like, oh, great. Well, can you do all that? And
the many hats come in.
For my whole time, like I've never actually had like a real job. So I was in school, and then I worked in sales. I paid my way through school, like working in sales. And then when I graduated, I started taking odd jobs as photographer, and I started doing design and graphic design for people. And I was just doing like all of these like creative gigs. So I've had so much on the court training and that type of stuff. So when people started asking me to do more in-depth work with their brands, I was sort of well positioned to fulfill on that for people because of all the stuff that I had done in the past. I believe in like experiential learning, right? Like just learning by doing. That's what I really believe in, because when you do stuff, you actually have that in your toolkit forever. Right. You never know. You're never asking yourself, can I do that? Or would I like to do that? There's so many things that I've done in my life that I know, like I definitely don't want to do. I don't go to sleep ever thinking to myself, like, might I like to do that? Because I tried and I know for a fact I don't want to do it. Like, or I know I can't do that. And it's just good to know to explore life in that way. That's how I explore life.
Well, that's really interesting. Like, I'm curious did you trust your journey to where you are? Because I think a lot of people, I can say for myself, like, I was an actor and I was a dancer, and then, I did catering on the side, and I didn't, like for me, I'm a certified coach now. I had no idea that this is what I was going to be doing or end up doing and be so connected and passionate about it. Because I, like so many people, didn't trust the journey of where I was going. And in a minute I found coaching, or I guess at least it found me, it just all like literally all made sense. Like I can really pinpoint all the moments, everything that I've done, all the jobs I've been through or did in my life have been preparing me for this moment. So was that like that for you, that you can say all these jobs and everything that you've been doing have been preparing you for this moment?
Yeah, 100%. And that's a super great distinction to make, because a lot of times people get so upset about like what's going on in their life, right. And it's because we tend to just default to this either or kind of idea, like it's something or it's not that, it's this or it's that. I have this or I don't have that, but the reality of what you're talking about, and this is exactly how I work, like what I'm doing right now is the culmination of everything that I have ever done up until this point. People say like, and I used to joke like this, when I'd have an art exhibit and people would say, how long did it take to make that art? And I'd say 30 years. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, because everything that I've done up until this point has led me to be able to do what I'm doing right this second, in this moment. Every single thing. Right. I was talking to somebody the other day about, when I was saying when I was in college, I used to work in sales. I worked at Cutco Cutlery. I don't know if anyone out there, if you know Cutco, then you know Cutco. If you don't know Cutco, you don't know Cutco. But if you know it, it's like this hilarious thing because millions of college students every single summer like do this job. And I did this job, and I was saying to somebody that I learned something called the 7 steps to a sale in this when I was doing this Cutco job. And to this day, that was like 20 years ago when I did that. To this day, I still, every time I'm mapping out a video for a client, or I'm building out like how they're going to lay out a website, or even then thinking about an ad campaign, I think of it in the structure of the 7 steps to a sale. And that's like some dinky thing I learned 20 years ago when I was selling knives to people. Do you
know them by heart?
The 7 steps to the sale?
Mm-hmm.
I have them written down on the board.
Oh, you do? What is it? Tell me.
So it's, let me see if I can get them by heart. Okay. So it's, the first step is build rapport. Then there's create a general problem, create a specific problem, go over the features and the benefits. No, build rapport, general problem, specific problem, solution, features and benefits, compare price, and then close. The 7 steps to the sale, which is it's really just the process that people need to go through to have all of the information to make a choice. It's basically because you have to build rapport, and the way that we do it, when we make movies, is like, and you see this happen all the time in movies. There's this amazing example from a book called "Save the Cat." That was written by.
Yeah, I love that.
You know that book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like screenwriting playbook.
Yeah, it's a screenwriting playbook, and he talks about the Save the Cat moment, and that's building rapport. And he talks about in the Al Pacino movie Serpico, like the opening scene. Serpico's like they do this thing where they call all these guys to Yankee Stadium to get free to meet the Yankees or whatever, but they just call all these criminals that have warrants out for their arrest. And when they come to go meet the Yankees, they arrest them. And that was like their big thing. And then what you see right in the beginning of the movie, Serpico comes out and he sees this guy with his son, and he's putting his Yankee cap on or whatever, and he's like with his son, and he sees this cute moment of this criminal guy, but with his son. And then Serpico walks by and he flashes his badge and he says, "I don't think you want to see the Yankees today," or something like that. I don't know exactly. But in that moment, the thing is that, and then the guy goes home with his son. So it's like, but in that moment, you just learned that his character, you just got a little piece of who Serpico is, right? Like, right. Even though they went through all this trouble to catch all these criminals, he was like, look at this dad and his kid. Like, I'm gonna, so you immediately love him in that moment, and then you love him for the rest of the movie, right?
He basically saves the dad and son from like walking into danger.
Yeah. And even though like that, so it gives you this idea that like, even though that guy's a criminal. Oh, by the way, I just want to preface that I will probably talk about a lot of examples. Most of the details in these examples are wrong. So all of you all that go out and watch it and you're like, what? That doesn't happen in Serpico. That's like some other movie.
I know. Right? I saw the movie. I'm like trying to remember that.
So why not just read the book, Save the Cat? It's amazing.
That's right,
go watch Serpico. It's a good movie. That's a scene from some movie. Okay. Right. But the example is sound. But the idea is like building rapport. So it's like that. Whenever you're doing an advertising campaign, or whenever you're doing a movie, or whenever you're even sitting down for a date, right? lift, you know? It's like
a romantic date.
or even a romantic date. Like, this is a great thing. Like, I was, I didn't do this on purpose, but I was in an Uber cab, not an Uber. I never take Uber, and I actually hate that we've come to call an entire industry of service by the name of one of the leading service providers. So let me be really clear. I was in a Lyft.
The left, okay.
And I'm in the back of the Lyft. This girl gets in the car. It's me and the driver and the girl, and she's on her phone with the healthcare company. And she's like, I know, oh my God, like, I just need to get this like done. Like, she's like, my phone is on 2%. Can we please like get this done? And then I heard that, and I turned to the guy and I said, hey, I was like, can we get your phone charger? I was like, what kind of phone do you have, an iPhone? And she was like, yeah. And then she plugged the phone in, and she was like, oh my God, thank you so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she got out of the car, right? And then she left, and I got back to like working on my phone. I was sending some emails, and the guy said, yo man, that was mad smooth. And I was like, what? And then he was like, you know, the phone thing, like, that was dope, bro. And, but I didn't realize it, but that's the type of thing, right? Like, if I was interested in this girl, like, that would have been like, what I didn't realize that I was doing was, in that moment, like, because I did that, like, it immediately built rapport. It
Right,
was
you
wow.
fulfilled the need that was like in the moment was missing.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful. I guess I want to talk more about that because my question to you is like, I was reading in your bio, I'm like, how do you help people find, well, let's talk about rapport. Like, how do you educate people to build rapport? Is there like there's steps, there's a process? Like, how do you build rapport, and how do you teach your clients to build rapport?
Well, I think so there's three different things. The first thing would be, how does one build rapport generally?
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is, how do I build rapport? And then third is, how do I work with my clients to build rapport? So the first thing is, I actually want to preface this entire conversation with, this could probably sound really creepy to some people. And I want to just preface this by saying that the world that I work in and the world that I live in is that I'm out to make a difference for humankind and for people. And inside of the world of making a difference for humankind and making a difference for people, like, ultimately, if I were to zoom all the way out from everything, I would say that my overarching concept is that world peace is possible, and it's possible right now. And everything that I'm up to when I'm being intentional is inside of the conversation of causing world peace immediately. And so when you're standing there, training yourself in building rapport with people is not creepy. Like, if I'm working with, the People's Cultural Plan, or if I'm working with an organization that's doing good for the world, training yourself in building rapport is imperative. Because if you really want to make a difference for people, you have to build rapport with them so that you can make that difference. And it's when you're standing inside of a context that's meaningful and empowering for the world and for society, it's actually imperative that you train yourself in these things.
Right, and I really love what you're saying. I hate to cut you off, and it's become so taboo to build rapport with people, and I'm a lot of it has to do with us being on our phone consistently and thinking that we were building rapport by being on social media, when we're actually not really, doing that. We've lost a lot of connection. So this is very, very vital, I find, with entrepreneurs. Which is missing a lot of, like, I see artists, particularly artists, especially when they're on social media, trying to present themselves. They're missing a rapport connection with the audience they're trying to build.
Yeah.
And it's so important what you're saying as an entrepreneur, to learn to really hone that skill of building rapport in order to make an impact, in order to gain clients. What you're saying is so beautiful, but I'm glad. I can't wait to hear more about what you have to say about, building rapport.
Yeah, thank you. And it's so important. Like, and so many people get shy. I was working with this one social movement on something, and they were so uncomfortable with this whole conversation because they had the context like sales, and everybody, and a lot of people, even I have like a creepy context about sales. But when you're working inside of an overarching commitment to something bigger and something wonderful for people, it's imperative that you have an appropriate sales pipeline. And then the reason why we call it stuff like a sales pipeline is just so that we have a term that's universal that everybody can know what we're talking about. You could really call it whatever you want, but the reality is like if people don't have a very clear pathway to your quote unquote product or whatever that is, they're not going to take advantage of it.
No.
So it's imperative that these things are set up. And this is what I was talking with this social movement about, because I was talking about like when you have all these roadblocks in the way of people reaching your message, which is an amazing message. And that's the thing, you got to get this message out. So you got to like, if it actually is imperative to take a look. So building rapport, if you're a creepy guy in a bar that's trying to just hit on women, like, I'm not interested in educating you on how to build rapport. Right. My number one lesson.
That's a different conversation. But
my number one lesson for building rapport is that it's very, very easy when what you're up to is honorable.
Right.
It's not a difficult thing when you're connected to what you're up to and you're up to something honorable and wonderful for the world. Like building rapport is so easy. And building rapport could just be as simple as just sharing about what you're doing. Like, hey, this is what I'm up to. I'm creating a project that is going to take plastic out of our forests. I'm in. What is it?
Right.
They have immediate rapport because that's something wonderful that you're up to. So that's the first thing is like when you're up to something great, don't be afraid to share it, and sharing it in itself can build rapport.
Yes, and also, I'm just thinking about my acting days. A lot of. Do you even work with actors? Do you work with dancers? Anything like that?
I actually have a program that I developed with an amazing artist. Her name is Allie Wilkinson. You might have actually met Allie.
Okay.
And she and we have this program called Being an Artist, where we work with artists around the being of artists. There's like a whole thing is like as an artist, you become an artist, or you go and graduate from school, or you go out and decide you're going to be an artist. But there's literally no structure out there for you.
No.
So work on like what it actually takes. So we have worked with some actors and things and that with that. Yeah.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up, like, actors or people in arts, let's say, when I was acting, I find that a lot of artists or actors, directors are really bad at building rapport, and they make it all about them and what they can get from you. And it's a really turnoff, when you at a networking event and you say, especially if I came up to you and I'm an actor and I hear you're a creative director, my immediate mind go, oh, what is he up to? What does he want? Like, how can I fit into, what you're doing? What can I gain from you? And that's not really how you build rapport with somebody who's up to something in the world. So what are some mistakes that you find that people do to build rapport, and how can they start correcting that?
Yeah, 100%. That's the biggest mistake that people can build is talking about yourself and thinking about where you can fit in to what somebody else is doing. That's not building rapport. That's and we go back to the 7. Come on, Cutco. We go back to the 7 steps of the sale. That's the features and benefits. Like, you have value, like as a person, right? And you have so many things that you could do for so many people. But unless you build rapport, unless you're aware of what their general problem is, unless you're aware of what their specific problems are, unless they're aware of what your product is, people just jump into those super far, That would be like if you walked into a store and the guy was like $12.99. And you're like, what happened? What are you talking about? And then he's like, aren't you buying razors? And you're like, what are you talking about? Right? It's like you're jumping ahead in the conversation. Like you got to get to know people and see what. So for me, that building rapport, what I do, I don't think about it as building rapport. I just think about it. I'm just curious. I'm just really curious about people. You just get curious about people. Like, what are they up to? What are they doing? Like, what is their life about? What are they motivated by? What do they care about? Like, that's it. Once you become curious about other people, you don't have to even think about building rapport.
No. And it's also too, like, I really love what you're saying, because that is a huge thing that is missing, because, you know, you and I might not even fit to be together to work with anything, you know. Being curious, you're finding out, you know, what's important to the other person. And even if I probably can't even help you out or even be involved in anything you want, but it goes back to the conversation about that in the lift, where we find out, like, oh, I can help you, but I know someone that probably can fit into what you're trying to create. And that's also a really great way of building rapport, that exactly what you did with the cell phone, you know, you're fulfilling a need that somebody was missing. And I think that a lot of what's missing is being curiously engaged, and finding out what people are really up to. And that's missing in dating as well, like being curious about the other person, not what they're out to do for you, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and generally that's so the case in business and in dating. And when we first talked about getting on this podcast, you know, you had told me about what you were up to, and there's such a connection between business and dating and like
Right.
living a juicy life in general.
Right.
And so much of what we're talking about right now, just being curious, curious about something other than this thing right here.
Yeah.
You know, like we're so all up our own ass like all the time that we miss everything going on out in the world. There's so much happening out there.
Yeah.
We're just so obsessed with like ourselves that we just, and by the way, it's like so uninteresting. I don't know. I've been with myself for like 30 something years now. I'm just so bored of this thing. You know what I mean? Like I've been with this thing for a while, and this thing has weird things about it and good things about it, and I just want to find out about other people's things.
So tell me, what are some of the common mistakes that you see entrepreneurs do?
The common mistakes that I see entrepreneurs do, I had the one major one is the common mistake that I made, which is going out on your own without having a leg to stand on.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that, so like I said, I never had a job, right? I never had a real job, or not one that I held down long enough to count. And so I built everything that I have today, which is by some standards a lot, but other standards not very much. But you know, I have the modicum of success that I experience, I've built all by myself. When I say by myself, I don't mean that nobody else was involved, because there was hundreds of people involved at so many levels in creating the things that I've created today. It's not that I did it all by myself. So that's one fallacy. As an entrepreneur, you never do anything by yourself.
Right.
There's anyone who's doing stuff by themselves, they're just not doing anything big, really. That's the reality. But the major mistake that I made is that I didn't work at a place for 10 years. You know, the way that most entrepreneurs start their life, the way the most successful entrepreneurs start out, is either you have to be independently wealthy. So if your parents have a lot of money, just leverage that. Don't be ashamed of it. Just do it. Stop screwing around, right? And stop pretending that's not where you came from, because that's where you came from. And dude, like, look, if my parents had mad money to give me to start stuff, I would take it, right? But the thing is that that's not available for some people. And also, that's not available for you, that's fine. It's just not available for you. Stop getting all bent out of shape because other people have money. Like, they have money, you don't. That's just how they were born. Like, I don't know. I wish I was born with a lot of money too. That didn't happen. So that's just where we're at. So but the main thing that I did is I didn't establish a strong enough foothold for myself before I went out on my own. So most people, like if I was going to start a business creative directing 10 years ago, you know, what I would do is I would go work at Gray Advertising. I would go work at, some place, and I would creative direct there for 5 years, 4 years, 3 years. Like, meanwhile, like I'm honing my skills and learning systems that actually work the same time, I'm getting introduced to clients and to people in that industry. And I'm also building up a war chest. I mean, you get a 401k, you get to save money. And then when you go out on your own, you can go out with $100,000 and a couple of potential clients, because you might, maybe I worked on the Volvo account when I was at an advertising agency, and then they left that company. But the guy at Volvo was like, listen, man, if you ever go out on your own, call me up. I've got some smaller projects, right? And then you go out on your own with $100,000 and the connections at Volvo and whatever, like company. And then that's actually how most entrepreneurs, Jeff Bezos. You know what Jeff Bezos did before he did Amazon? What? He was in finance. You think Jeff Bezos wasn't like 12, like in his mom's garage, like, I'm going to sell books. Like, no, Jeff Bezos was rich before he even did that. Like, that's the thing. People try to think like everybody wants to be this rags to riches story. And look, being the rags to riches story is nice, but there's like 6 people that ever actually did that. Most other people are like Donald Trump. They're like pretend rags to riches stories. Oh, rags to riches with $1 million. Right. Which, and also, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. But like the thing that is wrong about that is it creates this fallacy of the entrepreneur. Like, I lost 10 years of like my life because I was building from scratch, like scraping dollars together. Sometimes I'm still scraping dollars together to make it work. And if I had gone out with a proper training and with a proper background and a proper like financial foothold to actually go out on my own, because it takes, it could take 10 years to get 10 good clients. If you get one good client a year, that's like really like, I'm talking good. What I mean is like, you're getting like somewhere between 10 and like 20,000. That's not even that good. Like maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000, tens of thousands of dollars of business from that client a year. It could take you a year to get one client like that. So that means if you want to get 10 clients that are really actual, like good paying clients, it could take you 10 years. And how are you going to pay your bills in that time?
And I want to point out something very important that you said too, is like going back to the Jeff Bezos thing. It's like when you're in those jobs, you're learning how to build skill and to master those skills. And I had a friend of mine, she taught me that, she how she became a lawyer. She said she wanted a specific type of this job, I think at Goldman Sachs, but she knew that she had to build some skills somewhere else in order to lead up to be ready for Goldman Sachs. So she worked these like nonprofit jobs. She worked this other like little jobs. So she was building skills of like how to fundraise, how to make money, how to do finances. And she knew that that was her journey. And a lot of entrepreneurs, God knows I was one of those people, didn't really look at, oh, that's what I need to do in order to be where I am. Even, bring on this up, like both of us, at Landmark. And when I started coaching now, I was like, oh, this is how I'm going to master this skill of how to enroll people, how to like put a plan together, because I had nowhere else to go. I haven't even heard of this thing, how to put, a structure together in order to plan out and get where you want. I'm like, oh, okay, I can see where I'm honing that skill. And like, me being a love coach, calling in the one is a place where I can hone on the skill, because that is where I'm learning this from. So, oh, okay. Even like, as I do catering events and I'm managing, so, I know how to, if I really put myself into this, I can really learn how to throw my own events. I can put it together. I can build rapport with party planners if I need them. And I'm like, oh, that is why I'm in this job, to hone this skill, because now I know how to throw my own event, which I want to do eventually. I know how to put it together. I know how to structure it together. I have contacts now because all these things. And I think people negate or are negative where they are and not looking at the opportunities, making where they are an opportunity to grow and hone on to their skill, which is, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, that's the other part of it too, because if you do work at a job that's like, if you do say, oh, I want to work at this place so that I can get it, you have to actually bring that mindset that you're talking about.
Right.
That's the other part of it.
And how do you as an artist or artist director, how do you keep honing your skills? Like, what are the things that you do to be sharp, to grow, to master? Like, what are the things that you do in order to keep growing as a creative person?
I I just like you said, I literally relate to every single thing that I do as training ground for something else. That's how I relate to everything. And this is what I always tell everybody who will listen.
Listen up, people.
Yeah. But I look at everything as a training ground, because if I have to do X, whatever it is that I have to do, so, you know, even just like you said, because if you bring that mindset of like, this is training me. What am I training myself in? Because a lot of times we get annoyed with like tasks that we have to do at work. And people are always like, oh, it must be so cool to be an artist. And I'm like, yeah, it is really cool. And I'm still spending like 30% of my time like doing Microsoft Excel and like other stuff that you also do at your job. But the thing is, like, whenever I'm doing anything, I relate to that task as like an opportunity. Like, what am I training myself for when I'm doing this task? Like, why am I doing this task? Like, I might be doing this task because in order to get a paycheck from this client, I must complete this task. But there's no power in that. You're not, if you train yourself, if you're just doing tasks to get a paycheck from someone, that's the booby prize.
Yeah.
You know? Because what did you just do? And if you've mastered a task, you need to be training yourself on how to give that away to someone else.
Right. And I would say too, it's your responsibility to also look for opportunities of growth. You can't expect your employer or employee or someone just like, hey, you should be doing this and learn and grow. It's like you have to be self-responsible and look at, okay, I mastered this one, like what you just said, because teaching also help you master your skills, and like also who can I learn from, and what do I need to grow and pull from my greatness, and I pull for somebody else's greatness. That's a really great thing that you just mentioned too as well. So as an entrepreneur, what are some of the fears and things that you still run up against, and how do you push through those fears?
What are some fears that I run up against? My biggest fear right now, I don't think about fears. I'm trying to think of like what I'm literally afraid of in this moment. I have fears about money. You know, that's my biggest fears. Is fears about money. I mean, I literally generate with my whatever sweat, you know, like I'm the
blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, or I'm the source. My skills are the source of 100% of my income. So if I don't perform, my future doesn't happen. I don't know if I think maybe a lot of people relate. I guess that's pretty much true all the time, right? But
right.
There's not. I don't have a 401k plan. I don't have I don't have an actual job. So it's So that's my fear. Is that's the only thing that I'm afraid of. Really, is that what I'm up to like won't work out. Which I guess is like a normal fear for. It's weird because you ask me what I'm afraid of, and I think about like it doesn't live for me like a fear, because I have lived for my entire life with that fear. I've never had any kind of security. I've never had a safety net. I've never had a plan B. I never had a way back. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like a fear that I always have and always will have, and it lives within me, but it doesn't live like a fear because it's ever present.
How do you push through that? Because I know for me in those moments, it's like that voice is like in your head, it's like, oh God, what the hell am I doing right now? You know, like, you know, and I always have this thing where, you know, I'm complaining about this, you know, why am I an entrepreneur? Why am I either this, you know, and I go, well, do you want to continue catering? Do you want to continue to do a job and work with somebody who you don't want to work for? Do you want to do that? I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'll do an hour podcast, you know, it make a difference. You know, I'll do, you know, the little logistical things like that's not even a blip that I could do in 30 minutes, you know, like editing, putting this together. It's like, I find joy in that. So I find myself having to reconnect to why I am even taking on being a relationship coach. And two, you know, the difference that I am making, you know, in the world. And three, like, it's just fun for me, and not making myself wrong for having fun for doing something that I love to do.
Yeah. I think the way that I deal with the fear is like, I think of it as like, this is my choice. You know, like I said, when we first got on the phone, you know, this is not given. This life is not given to you. Life is not given to any of us. This is my choice. I chose to do this. I said I was going to do this. There's nobody on earth that thinks I can do this. There's nobody on earth that is encouraging me to do this. There's nobody on earth. The entire earth is saying, what the fuck is wrong with you? You are a moron. Why would you do this for so long? And why there's nobody on earth that is pulling me towards this except me. And I'm doing it because I said so. And I'm doing it because I'm going to be an example for people so that they can see that this is what you can do. Like, you can really just do whatever, you know, you want, not like irresponsibly, but whatever you dream for yourself. Like I can tell you, like, when I was sitting in wherever the hell I was sitting years and years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, like when I was in high school and I thought about like what it would be like to be, you know, in my 30s, and I thought about like what it would be like to be an adult in my high school. Like, I just knew like I didn't want to be doing what those other adults were doing. And I saw like artists, and I saw like musicians, and I saw people that were like living a free and like wonderful and like creatively expressed life. And I said, that's the person that I want to be. And when I think about that fear, you know, that I have, that's the trade-off, you know, that's what comes with it. Like when you're out, I consider myself to be like the space monkey. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm out in space, do you know? Like my grandfather actually worked at Grumman in the 1960s, and he worked on part of the lunar module that landed on.
Oh wow!
On the moon, and so I think about like and he has told me stories. He actually told me like really funny stories. My grandfather was an amazing man. So I actually recently reconnected with my grandfather when I did a project back in 2016, and I got to know him on a different level than I knew him for my whole life. And I got to see that he was an extraordinary human being. Like he didn't go to college. He went to the army when he was 17. And he was like just this Puerto Rican guy from Brooklyn who went to the army at 17, wound up in the engineering corps, learned a bunch of stuff, and then came back from the army and just sort of like made up this crazy life. Like he saw them talking about going to the moon, and he was like, I want to do that. And he like walked into Grumman and was like, give me a job. I want to work here. And they just, and then they gave him a job, and then he worked, and he was telling me these stories about, he told me this great story that I'll tell you. He told me the story about how these people would work upstairs, like all the MIT guys and all the smart people would work upstairs, and all of the people that built everything worked downstairs. And he worked downstairs. He was one of the people that built everything. And then they come down and they give you the plans and they'd say, build this. And then they would build it. And then he would say, and then they came down one time and they said, build this thing. And then he took a look at it and he said, this is not going to work. And they said, well, too bad. You have to build it. That's what your job is. He said, I'm not building this. It's not going to work. And they said, oh yeah? Why don't you go upstairs and tell that to them upstairs? So he said, okay. And he went upstairs and he was like, I'm not building this. This is not going to work. And they were like, what do you mean? We're smart. We went to MIT. Don't tell us that this is not going to work. We know this is going to work. And he said, no, this is not going to work because of this. I don't remember the story. It was some tool that like works in outer space. Like, I don't know anything about that. And he was like, it's not going to work. He was like, look, you need to do this, this, and this. He said, this is not going to function like this. And he laid it all out for them. And then they said, wow. They said, okay. They said, okay, you get a raise, you're coming upstairs, and you're going to be the guy that's now in charge of this project. And then he built this thing that went into outer space and did something in outer space to make the moon landing module land.
Wow.
And he was a guy, he had no college degree, no nothing. He just, and when I heard him tell me that story, I was like, wow, my life makes so much more sense because now that you're my grandpa. Well, because I am so like, I'm not afraid to be that person that's out there on the edge, out there on the limb, like just saying like, no, this is how I think it should be. And this is how things are supposed to be. And because I said so, because I see it that way, because I know this is going to work. And just seeing like, I didn't understand where that came from for a while, but like just hearing that story from my grandpa, and he also did all kinds of crazy stuff, like like moved to Florida when no one was moving to Florida. Like, or another crazy thing he did, he moved Grumman. He knew Grumman was moving down to Georgia, so he moved to Georgia, and then he went into the office. He said, "Give me a job. I worked at Grumman up in New York," and then they said, "Well, we can't give you a job because you would have to relocate to Georgia." And he was like, "I already did. When do you want me to start?"
Oh, wow.
And it was like, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, Grandpa is just like such a badass.
He's like a go-getter. Like, no, I'm doing this. Like, he's like, I don't need your permission. I'm just going to show up.
No permission. And this is like in the 1950s and 60s. This is not like now. Like, that was a different world back then.
Right. And I think too, that's something that will make a difference in being an entrepreneur, because sometimes you have to be that way, just like show up. And I'm realizing that now, as I continue to build my business, like sometimes I have to I'm going to reach out to this person because I want to. And people will be, I can't remember who I reached out to, and they're like, well, you reached out to that person. They responded. It was this girl, she made, Sunny Lenarduzzi. She's Forbes top 20, I think this year or last year. And I was listening to her podcast. She was like, email her if, you like her podcast. I was like, sure. So we just started, I emailed her and I wasn't expecting anything back. And she responded to me. And we had a little, back and forth. And I hooked it up with the woman who created, Calling in One. And she's been such a really great tool for me to grow and expand. And my friend was just in awe that I did that. I'm like, oh, she's a human being like anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, I'm hungry for it. I want to learn from somebody like that. And she's a real force in the world. I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but she's really big on YouTube and really big on Instagram and podcast world. And she just have so many great free tools of how to grow your business. And I'm all game for surrounding myself with people like that.
And you know what? It sounds crazy. Like that stories we all have so many stories like that. Like that's right. And it sounds crazy, but what you begin to see is that the people that you want to speak to, the people that you want to be in conversation with, that are actually up to something, that are actually doing something, they're generous.
Yeah.
Only like, and something else that people have to give up in order to be successful is you have to be generous.
Right.
And I'm continuously surprised at the people that give me the time of day.
Right.
And I've come to realize that successful people that are making a difference out in the world and really doing things, they're extremely generous.
Right.
And it's only us when we're not being generous. It's like this. I don't know. It blows me away too. Like,
well, it's a lot of it. We have this story in our head that we have to have it all together right away in order to fulfill on something. You know, even with like doing this podcast, like even creating this whole series, you know, I'm like, okay, well, I want to reach out to these people right now, but I don't have a lot to show. But I'm like, okay, like this guy who said yes to me. I've never met him before. I follow him on Instagram. He's a coach, has a huge following. We had been exchanging messages back and forth. When I reached out to him and told him my intention, he was like, sure, when, where, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, so you don't have to have it all together. Just have the tenacity to just ask, you know, because you know, I'm willing to, you know, as I grow up, that was the biggest lesson I learned, I would say, when I first moved to New York, is that, you know, I was a dancer and I had no job, didn't know where to even look for a job. And I had friends here, but my friends were so unwillingly to help me. Like, because they were afraid that I would take their position. I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, this whole thing in their head, you know, they made it seem that I was some kind of competition for them. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, there's plenty of work everywhere for everybody. Like, why are you putting me at a distance? I really struggled in the beginning to find work. And, you know, I was, you know, doing some catering work, and I made a promise to myself. I said, you know, I'm never going to be that person like that. You know, even as a coach, I'm willing to help other coaches to succeed because I can't coach everybody, you know, and I'm willing to give away information that is going to help somebody else succeed because that is what I'm also committed to. Like, I want to live in a place of abundance, not lack. And you know, my tools can definitely, or my knowledge or my experience can definitely help somebody else, you know, feed themselves the next day, pay that rent, you know, to get themselves to the next level. Like, it's not about me, you know, it's about if I'm committed to making a difference in the world, that is a part of it. You know, the people who are in the same category as me, you know?
Yeah. I have this like vision. When you're saying that, it's like, I saw this vision of like, it's almost like that things like flow. It's like we are like this vessel, right? And like the natural state of being is for things to just flow through you. And where we get stuck is like if we're not letting things in or if we're not letting things out. Because it's like things flow through you. And as you move up and you get to a higher level and you begin to learn, it's like you got to give that away to other people. Right. And it's almost like you're like this, like just this pipeline of like experience and knowledge. And like the natural state of it is like that it's flowing through you. I see it in my own life. I mean, one of my best friends and somebody who I work with his organization, the Influencers, is Jonathan Levy, and he, you know, he's like a brother to me, but he's also a mentor and a coach to me because I'm taking every single time we have a business meeting, I'm taking away like what there is for me to do in support of the organization, but I'm also like taking away like every aspect of like who this man is and what he's doing. And then I sit down and I meet with my team with Stroke of Genius and my teams with my other stuff, and I'm just spitting it right back out, you know? And it's like and it's this like flow of like sharing of information and sharing of knowledge, because, you know, like when we all win, then we all win.
Yes, right. So coming to the end, so what piece of advice or nuggets that somebody passed on to you that you would pass on to other entrepreneurs?
piece of advice that someone passed on to me that I would pass on to other entrepreneurs. Wow. Learn math.
Learn math.
Like, so many people think like, oh, I'm just like having this. So as an entrepreneur, you literally have to, somebody gave me the best definition of entrepreneur the other day. Hang on.
I'm ready for this.
And it was so, I have to look up two things before this podcast. Before this podcast is over. Well, no, that's not, but I don't know. So an entrepreneur, actually, this is so funny. This is the definition that came up on Google. An entrepreneur, a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses, taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. Did you think that was the definition of entrepreneur?
No, for me, a definition of entrepreneur is somebody who creates the creative of a business and and pursuing and creating that in the world. And what was it?
That's so funny. I don't know why I didn't realize that was the definition of it, but that's a cool definition.
And what was the second one?
Promoter in the entertainment industry. What is this dictionary? I think like, yeah, you just have to be able to do everything. Like, I think a lot of times people want to go out into business for themselves and they think like, oh, I'm the brains of the operation, or oh, I'm the creative one, or like, oh, like my CFO does that, or whatever. And then, I think like whenever we get blindsided by something, it's because like it's an area that we weren't dealing with. And like, if you go out into business for yourself thinking like you're not going to have to deal with a certain area of your business, like you're going to have to deal with that area of your business.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to deal with everything. Now you don't have to be an expert at everything, but you just have to be aware of everything.
Yeah.
And like, you got to know how to do math and like use Microsoft Excel. Microsoft Excel is the most bomb piece of software. I usually Google Sheets usually.
Yeah.
But Google Sheets is like, I do everything. And it's like, I'm a big fan.
I see your face.
Hey, wait, there's one more thing I have to look up. Hold on. I have to look up Jeff Bezos' job before he started Amazon, because I got to fact check myself on that one.
Yeah, you got to fact check yourself.
I'm like so bad. I always like give all of these examples when I'm speaking, and like I'm so aware that some of them are like totally like half true. But let's see. Blah blah blah. Well, he went to Princeton.
Well, that helps. Well, really quickly, who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Oh my gosh, so many people inspire me. I'm inspired by so many people.
Okay,
My biggest inspiration right now. My partner in Stroke of Genius. So you can look up, it's Share Your Stroke of Genius on Instagram, or we have a partnership with Thrive Global. So Kyle Mengelkamp is my partner in Stroke of Genius. And right now we're working on putting together a short video piece about, he suffered a stroke at age 11. So for the last 21 years, he's been post-stroke. And what we're creating in Stroke of Genius and what he's creating in that community is like such an inspiration. And I get to work with him every single day. And we're putting together a video now that's about his mom and about her experience, like living through this with her son. It's like so good. And so he's a big inspiration.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what does a life of love mean to you?
Ooh, a life of love means to me that I'm doing whatever it takes for me to love everything that I'm doing. And what I mean by that is that I don't think that it's natural to love everything that you're doing. I think love is like the most natural thing that we have, but I think that we're conditioned out of it like very early in our lives, at a very early age. So it doesn't occur as natural to love what we're doing, to love other people, to love everything. And I think just doing what you need to do to find love in everything that you're doing, that's what it means to live a life of love.
And how do you get out of your own way as an entrepreneur?
I get out of my own way by taking action, taking any action.
Yeah.
If I'm in my own way, it's just because I'm not taking action. And if I can't think of the action to take, this is a big way I get out of my own way, is by calling another person. Because mostly, like, when you're stuck, it's just because you're only talking to one person, which is so you only have like one idea, and that idea is not working. So you just get another idea. I literally get coached from I get coaching from anyone. I get coached from the guy on the corner. I'm like, hey, and then he says something, because he just says anyone can coach you because they just have a different view of the thing. And so I take action, and sometimes that action is just asking somebody else, and especially somebody that's not an expert, because they're going to have a crazy idea that you would have never thought of.
Good idea. That's a really good idea. Yeah. And what does a juicy love life look like to you?
Oh man, what does a juicy love life look like to me? I don't know. Is this a family show?
It's not a family show.
Oh man, a juicy love life. What does it look like to me? Juicy love life.
Say it. It's right there. I see it on your face.
I don't know, man.
Yes, you do. Stop it.
I honestly I like to have fun. Okay, so a juicy love life is like spending time with somebody, first of all, it's like having somebody in my life that I trust, like, who and really, really knows me and just likes to have fun, and like just spending time with someone I trust, whom I love, and just having fun and being free and like not really caring about what other people think. Okay. That's my juicy love.
And last question, what is one of the biggest lessons you learned by being an entrepreneur that you can share with other people?
That nothing goes according to plan, but everything works out perfectly.
Well, thank you, Liam. And I'm so honored to have you here and just seeing how you make a difference for people and what they're doing. And like, you're just such a great person. And I'm so happy to get to know you in this way in a whole different light. And that story about your grandfather really, actually, I think gave me a lot of insight of who you are and how do you show up in the world. So I thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm just so happy to talk about this stuff. Yeah. So anytime.
All right. Thank you.
All right.